Welcome to the Giving Voice to Addiction podcast, brought to you by Recovery.com, where each week real people share real stories of recovery. I'm Terry McGuire. Addiction isn't just statistics, it is personal. When we share our stories of recovery, we can inspire hope. So take a deep breath, settle in and listen as John gives voice to addiction. John, thank you for joining us.
Welcome.
So let's start with understanding what you're hoping someone will take away from hearing the bit of your story that you choose to share today.
I think that it's never too late. Had stretches of years sober with pocketed relapses, and there's a difference this time, which maybe we'll get into, but it's just truly never too late to get started and get after this. Even if you've failed, you always get back up, always.
I look forward to hearing more of the story. So, John, what is it that you consider yourself to be in recovery from?
Alcohol, but I think there's certain prescription medications where seeking those out is part of it as well. So it's kind of a pattern of behavior of being uncomfortable and seeking out a solution to that rather than really doing maybe work on the underlying foundation.
Does your fingers start to make a quote around solution?
Right. It may work for a moment, but it's a college professor used to say we could take all of our tests at the last day of the semester if we want. You're just postponing the pain. There's work to do.
So you describe yourself as having been in recovery for 18 years and sober for 17 months.
Yep, that's correct. So in 2006, like I said, I went to my first AA meeting. In 2010, there was a period of about 9 months there where I was drinking just about around the clock, maintenance drinking. I don't think there was really maybe a stretch of 2 or 3 days of non-drinking, which is not really sobriety because, at 3 days you start to get the DTs and right back into it. But in 2010, I went into inpatient treatment. I was inpatient for 88 days with easily another 60 or 90 of outpatient, IOP, various groups like that. I was in treatment again in 2018 for 28 days. And in between there were pockets of sobriety, some that were good, some that were just really dry. There's a period probably in the more recent years where it was managed, but there was peaks and valleys of prescription medication. Misuse was extremely unhealthy and just not a good way of living.
You use the terms good and dry. How do you differentiate those?
Good, where it truly just happy, peaceful, living in a true manner, true to myself. Where dry, it was more a lot of anger, a lot of anxiety, resentments for sure. Maybe just life was too busy to even realize what was going on. So kind of called dry.
So I've heard it said that drinking starts fun, then becomes fun with problems, then becomes a problem. Was that the way yours developed, or?
Yeah, I can still remember it. I think there's some milestones. I know exactly who I was with, where I was when I took my first drink at 18. I remember vividly, almost painfully, the first time I took a drink during the day, alone in the morning. It started out as a weekend warrior thing, college thing. But then my first job was in consulting, where a lot of it is work hard, play hard. It's this is great. Go crank out 60 hours of work in 4 days and then off we go. But then that pattern just devolves. And I think before you know it, you're just in it. It's such a graduated slide in where you start to feel more guilt about why am I doing this? This is harder than it should be. It's just that self-loathing, and it turns to that, and you're just this has got to stop. And then if you don't have anywhere to turn or reach, or you're ashamed or embarrassed, at least I know it was for me. It's well, no, I've got this. I couldn't possibly not have this. But you get to a point where you just got to ask for help. And I think that was when I finally, said that I should probably go to a meeting because, my dad and grandfather were both in recovery. I knew what AA was. I knew what meetings were. It devolves, and oftentimes I think the person in addiction or alcoholism is sometimes the last one to realize how far over the line things have become.
So even with the example of your father and grandfather going to meetings, that wasn't an immediate thing for you. Was it something you just had to sort of grow into the decision, or was it something you actively resisted?
I think I'd call it more denial than anything. It wasn't like, it's just like, no, I'm not that bad, because I still had the job. I still had the family. Like, I hadn't lost yet, right? So those social cues I was using as a rationale, it wasn't, being actively pushed either, but clearly it was causing problems, like a lot of things, and it got bad. First marriage happened to my first wife, and my daughter didn't deserve how deep that went. That was the point in time where day drinking had started, and it was just, I was a husk of so far from who I am that it can get to that point. And that point in my life was probably what I'd call the bottom.
When you first mentioned day drinking, you said that you remember vividly the first time you drank. Why do you think that's true?
I think because it's just so counter to morals, so against everything I'd ever wanted to be, what I thought I was. But that's how damn scary it is, that draw. And at that point when you're just physically now dependent on the ethanol being in your system, that feeling of not having it trumps every moral fiber of your body.
So you recognized it in the moment as counter to where you wanted to be,
absolutely.
As crossing a line. And yet I assume it wasn't a one-time thing.
No, from there, that behavior gets easier. She's like, oh, I can get away with this. I can do this. And you think it's not affecting your performance of your job, but clearly it is.
So where did it go that led you to say, I need to go into treatment?
My first wife and daughter were gone on a trip to see her family. And I don't think I left the house and drank for 3 days straight. House was in disarray, and I didn't even know they were there. I woke up to my ex, trying to get my attention and wake me up. I think she thought I might have been dead. But at that point, clearly nothing mattered at all other than being intoxicated.
Did you choose to go into a treatment center, or
I had
were
to?
you told to at that point?
That my choice. I called a couple of places, that were detoxes. I think I went to the ER first, and then options were presented from there, and I took them because I was just broken at that point.
What was that experience like, being in treatment?
I think being in detox, where it was just a medicated floor, where it's really just to keep you alive for the first 7 days, to not have the withdrawals kill you. It's scary. Saw a guy right next to me flat out have a seizure right in a small group setting. It was just like, how have I gotten here? At that point, I was motivated, just doing everything, starting to eat it up. Because at that point, I'd gone to meetings for about 4 years on and off, call it recovery, because I was secretly, drinking, go to meetings, not simultaneously, but, go for a week, disappear for a week, go for a week. But that first, it was terrifying. I was also fortunate. That was definitely a great opportunity, but I don't think at the time, you're just not ready. And they say that, you just hear it so often until you're ready. It was scary, but I lost. That was it. I got divorced. Huge distance from my daughter, which till very recently, I think since we communicated initially, that didn't really want a relationship. And it's fair. That was crushing and still not enough to just stop for good.
Are you aware, is one aware, in the moment that you are making a choice between a family, a wife and a daughter, and drinking? Or does it just sort of happen?
No, at that point in time, it'd be like, why did you relapse? And you just I don't know. But today I know. That's a different question. But no, you're drinking because there's this feeling of inadequacy, shame. And I think for me, the big one was not enoughness, no matter what. And that was pervasive. And the shame, it's shame, right? You don't tell anybody, no, I don't Just never feel good enough. Even though all the feedback could be the contrary. It's like, no, you're wrong or you're lying to me. In that sense of not belonging, not being enough. I say that now with like conciseness and clarity. I could not articulate that until the last 18 months here.
Let's talk about the last 18 months and how you got there. So how does someone get to the why? Why am I doing this? Why can't I stop? Why haven't I stopped?
What got me there was the honesty was more important than anything. So pieces I'd held back, even in therapy, because I've been in therapy too, continuously. Always thought it was like throwing my family under the bus. If I talked about it was not a healthy household, like, I had a good childhood, like that would be that's how I'd share. And I didn't, like things happened where, I did not acknowledge or bring it up, but that is the core of that not enoughness. There's a neighbor person in our neighborhood and things happened.
Right.
I think at least on 2 occasions under a blanket and, everything. I can just smell the house. I can smell his breath, all these things. I went home and told my mother after the first one. And, you're disgusting for having those thoughts. How do you even dream up something like that?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it's like, what the hell? What, dream up? And it just happened. But then you just see that just reinforced. Nothing was good enough. Even your most vulnerable, the people that are supposed to protect you, the 2 people you should be able to go to with this and should just, really you'd expect, as a father, you just see red and you hope there's a friend there to, hold you back. It's not okay.
Right.
It's not okay. Like I couldn't have been taken advantage of like that. That was a problem, and it was my fault for thinking the thoughts. And that today gets at the why. That earlier where it's just like, why relapse? I don't know. I know today. And it's freeing in a way,
What got you to the point where you were like, I'm going to look into this. I'm going to dig deep.
I think there's just nowhere to fall back on anymore. I just, everything went poof. Like, it's just like, I'm exhausted and I didn't have anything else but the choice to figure out why I could not, for the life of me, find peace. And I think I knew why. And I think the anger after my mom died showed it. Like, because I wasn't as much sad as I was angry. I don't want to be angry anymore. It's just polluting everything. Like, it was just, you bring that to the table professionally. You bring it in interpersonal relationships. You're just mad. And then the shame, like angry and ashamed, and then ashamed of the anger. And it's just, something's got to give. My last relapse, I drank mouthwash because I did not want to get obliterated, but I did not want to feel what I was feeling. And it was that just paradox of, what are you doing? I was just broken, and I truly didn't want to feel this way anymore. And, finally started to share with the psychologist and do the work. I don't want to do any of that anymore. I don't want it. But I had continuously coping that same way. Like, that was insane. So, yeah, I don't know what triggered it. Just a total desperation and realizing I hadn't been completely honest about that why. I don't think you don't know till you're slightly into it how freeing that truly can be. So you hear it in the rooms, it's painful, just the most painfully, desperately honest. And I wasn't.
Rigorous honesty.
Yep.
When you say that you weren't, you obviously mean with other people, but do you also mean with yourself?
I think so. I always thought I knew better. I think because it comes from growing up and having to be so self-sufficient and capable, but shutting out, not taking feedback, it's not the same as I've got this.
I don't want to frame a return to use or a relapse as a positive thing, but it sounds like in your journey, it was almost a necessary step, to use your word, broken point where you were like, I got to figure this out. I got to get to the core. Is that what I'm hearing?
I think so. I think it's fair that, I think relapse is not failure if you get back up.
Right.
But it is part of my story. And I got tired of falling down because it just, every time getting back up, it's just harder. And just the shame was deeper because you're like, I know what to do and I'm not doing it. But I can see in that moment, I know why it felt that way. Like, yeah, I know it's not okay, but God, this hurts so bad.
Mm-hmm.
The hurt was heavier on the scale than hope. But yeah, those falls, there's value in them because I think for me, in sitting with this and actually doing the work, there's value in that because just there's a lot that I'm not scared of anymore. Like you can genuinely look other men and women in the program in the eye and be like, no, it will be okay. It can be okay. And you're not lying. You're on solid foundation for the first time. And I would say ever, because like I said, that piece, that trauma piece, when you just can't answer the why.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, no, you can. Can't answer it today, but you can look people in the eye who come in scared and broken, just be like, look them dead in the eye. And I think there's a level of belief when you just say it because you genuinely mean it. And I'm genuinely living it because of all those times I relapsed and fell.
Without unpacking, to use an adverb, the trauma and getting to what you call your why, do you think you could be at this stage of recovery?
No, simply no. For me, on my journey, I clearly had to. And if I don't think I met the folks I did, have a sponsor challenging me early on about, no, you've got this resentment, you're not dealing with it, come back, do it again, try it again, pretty much, which continued that unpacking. I had this weird sense I was just standing, in a hallway in my home, and I just had this group hug in my mind with my mom and dad, like, I forgave them. I think they genuinely were doing the best they could. Because if I look at how they grew up and what they went through, a lot of those same patterns and things, they just didn't have the tool set. And I think I was like, I think it was so long I held on to that. Like, you should have done more. You should have. It was that resentment and letting go of that. And being like, you don't need that, John. There's not some big complex mystery. Which I always thought like there's just something I didn't get. And what it was no, it was this thing, right? It wasn't 100 things. It was one thing I left untouched. Because it's scary. It is a scary thing to have to go after and be like, that shouldn't have happened that way. And I think I was afraid of just the flood of more negative emotions that would come with that would hurt too much.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't. It's like air oxygen coming back into the room almost. Like I'd been holding my breath and you're just like down to the wire where it's like, well, I've got to try this either way because there's nothing else to try, right? Hold my breath and it'll run out, or trust what everybody says and these people you've reached out to guide, to get help. Maybe try that, and wouldn't you know it, but you boil it all down. I spent years trying to just act like I got this, and I didn't. I was scared of this one thing, and getting after that is freeing.
You describe your current connections and relationships as deep, wholesome, and genuine. And you say you are living an authentic version of yourself. And that is a hell of a prize for everything you've been through.
Like just my goofy, silly, just witty, love the things I love. And it's simple. It's just so simple. It's just, my current partner, like, I am absolutely me. No reservations, no worrying like, oh, what are they going to, like, I just, me down to the core, and she loves that. And I think now my son sees that, he loves that. And I think other people, like, they love that. And it's just being kind first. And, I see that as, weak anymore, right? Because it takes work when stuff isn't perfect, to be like, well, there's an answer in here somewhere. Let's just go find it.
So you said the people in your life like and are appreciating and responding to the authentic you. Do you like you now?
Yeah, I do. Because for all the things you said, just quick to apologize. Like, I don't sit with negative feelings. I'm a good, busy, doing good, positive things. And I think that happened organically out of a time where in the ER detox, I met first sponsor who was just instrumental, and then it stepped from there, and it's just been beautiful. And trying, early on it was finding this person again and feeling comfortable letting him just be.
I'm glad you're somewhere that you get to see all the good in you and not be stuck in the pain in you.
No, I was stuck for a long time.
I'm glad you got to this place.
Me too. Thank you.
I'm glad you're sharing it so that other people realize that a journey can lead you here.
It can. It really can. So, and I think that's why it's important to share, because, right, there's going to be a lot of things that don't land from any one person, but if it's something that lands, that's why you show up and be in the meetings and part of the rooms and just throw that out there. Because if you can connect, it literally is that important. Because for a lot of people, it is life and death. And what an awesome thing with all you have to do was show up and talk about your experience and strength you gain for it, that it's not hopeless. It is absolutely, it'd be scary as hell. It'd be a lot of things, terrifying, hurt, you feel harm, but it's not hopeless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And that brings us to the end of this episode of Giving Voice to Addiction. Thank you so much for being part of this important conversation. And if you or someone you know is looking for support or resources, please visit Recovery.com. They offer a wide range of information, including treatment options. We'll be back soon with another episode. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Take care of yourselves and each other. Take care of yourselves and each other.